Good afternoon, friends. How are you today? As usual, I'm trying to take today topic about again landlord tenant board and what you are saying. I'm using my office chair today for dressing you, and I'm going to tell you on focusing only on two forms N4 and N12. Usually these forms are nowadays widely seen in the landlord tenant board because after that, in case the tenants do not get evicted, then landlords have to file an application for N4 and N12 forms, that is L1 and L2 applications. I will just focus today about L1 and N4 as well as N12. What precautions you were supposed to take while filing these forms, and you should not be doing so on your own usually because you may be making a lot of mistakes. So we will advise you always consult a paralegal or any person who is uh, a good standing member of Law Society of Ontario, whether he can be a lawyer or a paralegal. So first of all, I'm going to take up the case of N4. What is N4 basically? N4 is used for non-payment of rent when the rent is not coming in time and the rent is not paid by the tenant and he is taking advantage of the situation. So N4 can be served to him. When N4 is served, you have to take care how you are going to deliver the N4. N4 must be delivered with a utmost care. Like either you have to hand over N4 personally to the tenant or send it by post or registered mail, or you have to drop this in his letter box or mailbox, whatsoever is there. And after 14 days, you are entitled to file the L1. But be careful while you are calculating the total rent due, whether the rent was coming in time and have you adjusted all the rent paid by your tenant or not. That is the instructions to the landlord. When it is coming for the tenant how to deal with the N4 form. For the tenants, they have to see and watch what they have paid. Do they have a proper receipt from the landlord or not? If the receipt is there, they it must be signed properly by the landlord who is authorized to sign. Usually, sometimes it's seen like uh, sometimes by uh, ignorance or intentionally, the receipts are signed by their like children or something like that, which is not good basically. So that receipt can be challenged and can you can understand can be invalid also. Number two, which is very important, if you are paying the rent by cash, you must have proper receipt for that cash and source of cash from where you have received the cash or withdrawn the cash. That record you must keep with yourself. I have seen many times there is always a small dispute regarding first and last. Usually, what happens, the tenant uh, sometimes says, okay, you can use my last, I will be vacating this accommodation in specific time or something like that. When that last month rent is used, what happens during the dispute? it is claimed that it was not used. So that record also must be maintained by both landlord and tenant so that these disputes can be avoided in the future. Now I'm coming to the point. L1. L1, you can always update your rental, uh, what do you call, information. If while filing your L1 application, it was the if you have, for example, you have given the eviction notice to the tenant that he should be evicting this accommodation by 30th of January or so, and when you filed the application, you filed it on 1st of February, and you are shown the rent up to unpaid rent up to 1st of February of any year. So what happens that time when the date for hearing comes, the rent becomes in a bigger amount due. So there is a update form, rent update form. You can always fill up that form. Can show that now the rent is, for example, the date comes for March or April. So you can always show the rent is not paid up to March or April, or if it was paid, so how much is the due? So that form is very important to be filled up. This is for N4. Now I'm coming for N12. N12 application is very important for those people if your own, I will say, like for your, if your children is moving in that accommodation where already you have like you have rented that accommodation, and now your children, your father, your mother, or anybody is intending to move in that accommodation, then only you can fill up the N12 form. Or if you are planning to sell that property, and then you are intended to fill that N12 form. Usually it is seen nowadays like N12 form is filled up, fake affidavits are getting submitted to the board, and what is happening, like later on they again re-rent that accommodation on the higher rate. I am just warning for those landlords, those who are doing so, there can be a very heavy penalty for that. Like the previous uh, tenant can sue you for the losses he has incurred due to the difference of rent from the new place. In case he's going to the new place and he is paying some $200 extra, he can charge on you up to 1 year extra rent which he is paying at the new place. Number two, which is very important again, if your relative or your father or your mother or your children are moving, then only you file this notice, and after that L1 or L2 application. It is very important. Don't lie with landlord tenant board, and don't lie with your tenant. And if you are planning to sell it, then only you file and take advantage of this N12. Now, a small piece of advice to tenants also. Tenants, if you are not updated your rent up, if your rents are due, try to bring them at that level so that there should not be a bigger crisis after this COVID-19. You do not land in much bigger problem. Keep on paying your rent if possible. Don't accumulate it so that you stay back in the same accommodation for your long stay. It becomes very difficult sometimes to find a better accommodation. Number two, I just want to advise you another issue. In case you want to vacate the property, always give a 30 days notice on a specific form which is been authorized by landlord tenant board to your landlord, then only vacate the property. For N12, I want to just make one point clear here also, that when you are filling the N12 form, always take the assistance of some legal expert, because you may commit a lot of mistakes like dates. Because it is very important to note when your accommodation next rent is due, and when the rent is due, that date becomes very, very important, because your contract begins from that date. Usually, what I have been saying, oh, we have given 60 days notice or something like that, but they do not consider that when the date of rent means the occupation was there by the tenant. So if you ignore these points, what happens ultimately? The things get really confused, and can be your application L1 or L2 can be rejected at the board. Number two, N12 form also doesn't remain valid in that way. For any this type of inquiries, please call me at 416-278-9525. Oh, that is my cell number, or on my office number 416-840-5767 extension 100. Next, I will be taking something about small claims court. Until then, goodbye and stay safe.